Good evening, everybody. I am Dr. Devashish Bhatt. We talk on gallstone disease. I have graduated from Dhaka Medical College Hospital and I have completed my FCPS in surgery. Now I am working as the Registrar Department of Surgery, Dhaka Medical College Hospital. As we know that gallstone disease is a very important topic for both undergraduate and postgraduate students for medical examination. Two organs like gallbladder and the appendix. These are two organs which are most important for the surgeons, general surgeons, and so it is also important for the undergraduate and postgraduate medical students. In the hepatobiliary system, the gallbladder, it is important for the undergraduate students, and the biliary tree, it is important for the postgraduate students. If we classify the biliary tree diseases, we can classify it as a benign biliary diseases like calculous biliary diseases and non-calculous biliary diseases, malignant biliary diseases, and we will take another class on common surgeries of the biliary tree and the long case related to the hepatobiliary system. My today's topic is calculous biliary disease. Before going to the topic, the calculus biliary disease, at first we will discuss on the surgical anatomy of the biliary tree. The surgical anatomy and physiology, it is important for the undergraduate students as because from this topic, a lot of MCQ questions will be asked in the examination. So we have to know that. But for the postgraduate students, the variations of the anatomy and physiology will be important. The biliary tree may be variable in 30% of patients. Here we know that the biliary system is composed of the intrahepatic biliary tree and extrahepatic biliary tree. Intrahepatic biliary tree, it is composed of right and left hepatic duct, which combines to form the common hepatic duct. The cystic duct draining from the gallbladder joins in with the hepatic duct and forms the common bile duct. The common bile duct ultimately opens into the second part of the duodenum by the ampulla of Vater. Sometimes it takes the pancreatic duct with it. The ampulla of Vater, it opens into the second part of the duodenum and the anatomy may be variable. Here in the picture we can see that the common bile duct and the pancreatic duct separately opens into the ampulla of Vater. Here, the bile duct and the pancreatic duct joins in the wall of the duodenum. Here, the bile duct and pancreatic duct joins outside the duodenal wall, and here the bile duct and the pancreatic duct separately joins into the bile duct. The common bile duct, it is about 7.5 centimeter long and it is divided into four parts. That is the supraduodenal part, it is the retroduodenal part. The supraduodenal part is about 2.5 centimeter long and the retroduodenal part which passes behind the duodenum and it makes a tunnel behind the pancreas and ultimately it opens into the duodenum. And the intraduodenal portion which may join with the pancreatic duct. The cystic duct, it is about 1 to 5 centimeter long and about 1 to 3 millimeter in diameter. It drains the gallbladder into the common bile duct. And there are some mucosal folds. These are known as Heystad's valve, and these valves prevents the passage of the gallstone to pass into the bile duct, and thus prevents the occurrence of the secondary bile duct stone, which comes from the gallbladder into the hepatic duct or common bile duct. There are some anatomical variations in the insertion of the cystic duct. Most importantly, the cystic duct may be tortuous, it may be long and passes behind the common hepatic duct. Sometimes it may pass parallelly with the common hepatic duct and inserts into the lowermost part of the common bile duct. And other variations are the right posterior sectoral duct. This comes from the right posterior sector of the liver. It may join with the cystic duct. Sometimes the right posterior duct joins at the infundibulum of the gallbladder, and sometimes accessory duct that connects the right posterior sectoral duct with the gallbladder. This duct is known as duct of Luska, and during cholecystectomy, these ducts are most commonly injured and the biloma may be formed after cholecystectomy at the gallbladder bed. Now about the gallbladder. It is a pear-shaped organ, we all know that, and its capacity is about 25 to 30 ml, and its parts are fundus, body, infundibulum, and neck. The gallbladder is attached with the undersurface of the liver by a mesentery that is attached to the gallbladder fossa. And this gallbladder fossa separates the liver into right and left lobe. It is surgically important. The lymphatics of the gallbladder, which drains into the sentinel lymph nodes, that is known as cystic lymph node of Lund. During the dissection of the Callo's triangle, we find these lymph nodes, and these lymph nodes guide the surgeons to find the cystic artery during their dissections. Common hepatic duct, which is formed by the junction of the right and left hepatic duct, it is about 2.5 centimeter long, and some part may be within the hilar plate, and it is the extension of the Gleason's capsule, and it enters into the right and left lobe of the liver. Now we come to the arterial supply of the biliary tree. We know that gallbladder is supplied by the cystic artery, and the cystic artery most commonly arises from the right hepatic artery, and it arises behind the common hepatic duct. The bile duct is commonly supplied by the right and left choledochal artery, which arises from the right and left hepatic artery and joins with the supraduodenal artery. We know the anatomical variations of the biliary tree and the arterial supply because these variations may be important during surgical procedures. Most of the time, the cystic artery arises from the right hepatic artery, but sometimes it may arise from the gastroduodenal artery. And in 15% cases, the right hepatic artery or the cystic artery, it crosses in front of the common hepatic duct and in front of the cystic duct. An important anatomical landmark, that is Gallo's triangle. It is also called the hepatobiliary triangle. It is surgically important as because most of the surgeries we dissect this triangle and find the important structures at the porta hepatis, and the boundary of this triangle, it is formed superiorly by the inferior surface of the liver, laterally by the cystic duct and medial border of the gallbladder, and medially by the common hepatic duct. Previously, the superior border was described as the cystic artery, and the content of the Callo's triangle, it is the cystic artery. During cholecystectomy, we dissect this area and find the cystic artery for clipping. An important anatomical variations of the Callo's triangle in regards to the hepatic artery. That is, sometimes the hepatic artery may pass in front of the common hepatic duct and it may be tortuous, and it comes within the boundary of the Calot's triangle and it may be injured. This tortuosity is termed as caterpillar turn or Moynihan sum. The right hepatic artery may also be tortuous. Now the important relations at the porta hepatis. Here in this picture, we can see that the common hepatic duct, it lies most anteriorly and to the right. To the left and posterior, it is the hepatic artery, which divides into right and left hepatic artery. The right hepatic artery commonly passes behind the common hepatic duct, and the left hepatic artery, which passes in front of the left hepatic duct. And behind the hepatic duct and hepatic artery passes the portal vein. And behind all these structures passes the vena cava. About the physiology of the hepatobiliary tree, we have to know that the bile is produced by the liver. It passes through the right and left hepatic duct. It is stored in the gallbladder. Then gallbladder secretes bile when it is necessary, most commonly after feeding, and it passes into the second part of the duodenum through the common bile duct. And liver produces about 40 ml of bile per hour. The hepatic bile, it is diluted and it contains water about 97%, but in the gallbladder, it is concentrated about 5 to 10 times. Gallbladder absorbs water from the bile and it is concentrated in the gallbladder when it is stored in the gallbladder. Bile secretion from the liver serves two opposite functions. The one function is it excretes the metabolites of our body through the bile, and the bile salt which is present in the bile, it helps in the absorption of digestion and absorption of the fat and fat soluble vitamins. We have known earlier that gallbladder is the reservoir of bile. It concentrates bile as well as it secretes mucus. It is about 20 ml per day. The mucus is produced during the gallbladder. During fasting, the gallbladder, it reserves the bile, and after eating meal, the gallbladder contracts and it secretes the bile in the duodenum, and it is controlled by cholecystokinin, which causes contraction of the gallbladder and relaxation of the ampulla of Vater. Another important physiology, that is the secreted bile in the second part of the duodenum, it passes through the jejunum and ileum, and it does its work regarding the digestion and absorption of the food material. And in the terminal ileum, it is also reabsorbed in the portal circulation. 95% bile salts are reabsorbed in the circulation and it is entered into the liver. Only 5% bile salts are excreted into the stool. It is called as enterohepatic circulation of the bile salts. Now come to the point, that is calculus biliary disease. It means that a stone is formed into the biliary system. Calculus biliary disease, it is the most significant pathology of the gallbladder and the biliary tree, and cholecystectomy is the operation which is most commonly performed by the general surgeons. So it is very much important for us to know about the calculus biliary disease. Gallstones, it affects about 10 to 15% of the population of the Western countries, and more than 80% gallstone diseases are asymptomatic. but 1 to 2% of the asymptomatic patients become symptomatic per year. Now, we have to know that how the gallstones are formed. There are several theories of gallstone formation, but the most accepted theories are the gallstones are formed by the supersaturation of the secreted bile. It is also formed by concentration of bile in the gallbladder. Sometimes it is formed by crystal nucleation, and another pathology that helps in the gallstone formation, that is gallbladder dysmotility. High concentration of cholesterol and lipid in the bile, it predisposes to cholesterol stone secretion. So fatty people are more prone to gallstone formation, and it is the cholesterol stone formation. Sometimes there are some diseases which breaks the RBC in excessive amount, that is hemolytic anemia, and here the RBC breakdown and hemoglobin processing, it is also associated with pigment stone formation. We know that bile salts, it acts to solubilize the cholesterol, and when the bile salts are reduced and the cholesterol content of the bile is increased, it may precipitate to the formation of cholesterol stone. Gallbladder, if it works abnormally and there is dysmotility in this organ, then the stasis of the bile occurs in the gallbladder, which may cause formation of the stone within the gallbladder. These conditions where the impaired gallbladder emptying occurs, these are prolonged fasting state, use of total parenteral nutrition after vagotomy, and use of somatostatin analogs. These all the conditions causes the dysmotility of the gallbladder and stasis of the bile in the gallbladder and helps in formation of the gallbladder stone. Here in this picture, we can see the etiological factors of gallstone formation. It is taken from the Bell Lab. I will not go through the picture in details. Now about the types of gallstone formation. We know that there are mainly three types of gallstones. One is cholesterol stone, second is mixed stone, and the third is pigmented stone. In the Western countries, 80% people have the cholesterol stone, but in our countries and in the Asian people, the most of the stones are pigment stones. Cholesterol stones, it is usually single and look like golden yellow in color, and it contains about 51 to 99% of pure cholesterol, as well as it contains calcium salts, bile acids, bile pigments, and phospholipids. Pigment stones may be two types. It may be brown or black. Black stones are usually found in the gallbladder in hemolytic conditions and cirrhosis of the liver. The brown stones, it occurs within the biliary tree due to disorders of the biliary motility and associated bacterial infection. So, we have to know that the brown stones are usually associated with bacterial infections of the biliary tree. Sometimes it may be associated with the endoprosthesis within the bile duct, that is stents, and some parasites within the bile duct, that is Clonorchis sinensis and Ascaris lumbricoides. If we go to the natural history of the gallstones, we can find that the most of the gallstones are asymptomatic, and most of the gallstones are found incidentally when the patients go on imaging due to any other cause of abdominal pathologies, that is any other causes of abdominal pain. It may stay in the gallbladder asymptomatically. It may pass through the cystic duct, and during the passage it may obstruct the cystic duct, and produces the biliary colic, and it may also produce acute cholecystitis. It may pass through the bile duct and it may obstruct the distal bile duct. It may cause uh, biliary colic and obstructive jaundice. Then it may pass through the ampulla of Vater and it may cause pancreatitis. And ultimately, it may pass into the intestine. Some of the gallstones that may cause erosion of the gallbladder and the duodenum, and it may cause polycystoduodenal fistula, and if it is large, it may pass through the duodenum but can obstruct into the distal ileum, which may cause gallstone ileus. Stones usually do not cause any symptom, but when it obstructs any luminal structure, that is gallbladder or the bile duct or the intestine, then it causes symptoms. Usually, asymptomatic patients have no complications, but 1% patient may develop complications who have no previous any symptoms. So we learned that it may cause biliary colic by the obstruction of the cystic duct or bile duct. And it may cause acute cholecystitis when it obstructs the cystic duct. But after some times, the gallbladder backs into the gallbladder stone backs into the gallbladder from the neck, and the inflammation is relieved, and it resolves the features of acute cholecystitis. But when the stone is impacted into the gallbladder for a longer time, then it may cause superadded infection of the bile, and that is called the empyema of the gallbladder. The empyema, which may be necrotic and may perforate and the bile, and the infected bile that is pus, it may cause localized peritonitis. Sometimes this infected bile and pus may spread into the peritoneal cavity and it may cause generalized peritonitis and septic peritonitis. So if we summarize the effects of gallstone in the biliary disease, we can see that it may cause biliary colic, acute cholecystitis. When repeated inflammation occurs, it causes chronic cholecystitis. The infected gallbladder may cause empyema gallbladder, and sometimes the neck is obstructed and bile salts are absorbed and mucus is secreted within the gallbladder, that is called mucocele of the gallbladder. The empyema gallbladder or mucocele may perforate, and in the biliary tree, the gallstone may cause biliary obstruction causing obstructive jaundice. It may cause secondary infection of the biliary tree causing acute cholangitis, and it may cause inflammation of the pancreas causing acute pancreatitis. And we learned that it may also cause intestinal obstruction, that is called gallstone ileus. Now we come to the specific pathology, that is chronic calculous cholecystitis. Chronic calculous cholecystitis, it is the recurrent attack of biliary colic, which causes fibrosis and scarring of the neck of the gallbladder, and the gallbladder wall becomes thickened and it becomes smaller in size, that is contracted. The patients with chronic cholecystitis presents with the symptomatic biliary colic, and the most common symptom is pain that occurs after ingestion of the fatty meal, and it is felt into the epigastrium or right upper quadrant, that is right hypochondrium, and this pain may be radiate to the scapula. This pain usually last for few hours and usually associated with the uh, gastrointestinal symptoms, that is bloating, nausea, and vomiting. We should remember that any visceral pain that may be associated with the autonomic symptoms, that is nausea, vomiting, and sweating. If the pain lasts for more than 24 hours and associated with fever, it will suggest that there is acute inflammation of the gallbladder and we should diagnose that this condition is acute cholecystitis. The diagnosis of chronic calculus cholecystitis is mainly by ultrasonography, that is transabdominal ultrasonography of the hepatobiliary system and pancreas. And ultrasonography will document a stone within the gallbladder, and the report will say that there is right echogenic structure within the lumen of the gallbladder, casting posterior aqueous shadow. Here it is the whitish area, that is the stone. It is the wall of the gallbladder, and behind the white echogenic structure, it is the posterior aqueous shadow. It is due to the presence of gallstone. The gallbladder may also be contracted, smaller, and thick-walled. What is the treatment of chronic calculus cholecystitis? The treatment is clean cut, and the patient should be advised for cholecystectomy. Nowadays, laparoscopic cholecystectomy is most preferable operation rather than open cholecystectomy. Now we will talk on acute calculus cholecystitis. We learned earlier that when the obstruction of the cystic duct is persistent, it will cause persistent inflammation and will cause acute cholecystitis. Here in the acute cholecystitis, if the obstruction does not resolve and the inflammation will continue, and which will cause the edema of the gallbladder wall and sometimes subserosal hemorrhage. And the obstructed bile within the gallbladder, it becomes infected by ascending infection from the biliary tree. Here in this picture, we can see the pathophysiology. Here we can see that gallstone which obstructs the neck of the cystic duct, which causes increased pressure in the lumen of the gallbladder. It causes distension of the gallbladder and edema of the gallbladder wall. Sometimes there may be associated subserosal hemorrhage. From here, the gallbladder may be gangrenous in some part or in generalized, and it may be perforated, and which causes perforation of the gallbladder with localized peritonitis or generalized peritonitis. If the inflammation does not regulate, then the gallbladder will progress to ischemia and necrosis, and acute becomes the gangrenous cholecystitis. Sometimes gas-forming organisms may infect the gallbladder and it may cause gas formation within the gallbladder lumen, and there will be an air fluid level on plain X-ray that is called emphysematous cholecystitis. There are some differential diagnoses of acute calculus cholecystitis. The most common differentials are acute appendicitis, perforations of the peptic ulcer disease, acute pancreatitis. All the organs are located close to the right hypochondrium. So these are the common differentials. The rare differentials are acute pyelonephritis, sometimes myocardial infarction. It may cause pain in the epigastrium, And right lower lobe pneumonia, it may cause also pain in the right hypochondrium. The pain is the most common presentation of acute calculus cholecystitis, and in acute phase, the pain will present for more than 24 hours. It will be associated also with fever and vomiting. And on examination, we will find the positive Murphy's sign. That is, if we press at the tip of the ninth costal cartilage, the patient will cease his inspiration at the depth of inspiration. And it is called the positive Murphy's sign because the inflamed gallbladder, it touches the parietal peritoneum when the uh, wall is pressed by the thumb of the examiner and it causes pain. The diagnosis is mostly done by ultrasonography, but on complete blood count, there might be neutrophilic leukocytosis, and in liver function test, the liver enzymes may be altered. The abdominal ultrasonography, which will demonstrate that there will be a stone in the neck of the gallbladder, and the gallbladder will be distended with edematous wall, and pericholecystic halo, that is pericholecystic edema will be found. The gallbladder wall will be also thickened. Sometimes sonographic Murphy signs is also possible if the sonologist prays in the right hypochondrium with the probe of the ultrasonography, the patient will cease his inspiration. It is sonographic Murphy sign. We don't do the investigation, that is hepatobiliary immunodiacetic acid scan, and it is documented that the HIDA scan, it can diagnose the acute cholecystitis with accuracy, but we routinely don't do the investigation. Here, if the gallbladder is filled up, we should note that there is no obstruction at the cystic duct. But if the cystic duct is obstructed, the gallbladder will not be filled up with the dye. CT scan is also diagnostic, and it can diagnose the complicated acute cholecystitis. It can identify the stone and the edema and distension of the gallbladder. The treatment of acute cholecystitis, it is controversial as because some surgeons prefer to do the surgery in acute condition, but some do not. The 90% cases of acute cholecystitis will subside with conservative management. And the conservative management of acute cholecystitis, which will comprise the nothing per oral, administration of analgesics, administration of antibiotics. The preferred choice of antibiotic is cefazolin or cefuroxime or ciprofloxacin. And subsequently, we will give the patient oral diet when the inflammation, pain, and fissures of acute cholecystitis will resolve. After the conservative management, 6 weeks will require to resolve the inflammation, and the preferred time of interval cholecystectomy, it is 6 weeks after the acute inflammation of the gallbladder. But if we do the cholecystectomy in acute state, it will be within the 5 to 7 days of initiation of inflammation. And some difficulties may be faced during cholecystectomy in an acute cholecystitis patient. That is the bleeding and inflammation of the gallbladder and perforation. So expert surgeons are required to do the operation. Another pathology that is caused by gallstone, The gallstone, which obstructs the cystic duct we learned earlier, will cause the stasis of bile within the lumen, and the bile salts are absorbed. The gallbladder mucosa will secrete the mucus, and the gallbladder will be distended. It will be hugely distended, and wall will be thinned, and it will look whitish in color. It is not painful, but the gallbladder may be palpable parabdominally, and this condition is called mucocele of the gallbladder. Here in this picture, we can see the perioperative picture of mucocele of gallbladder. The pathology is diagnosed by ultrasonography, and we should treat this type of patients by elective cholecystectomy, as because this mucocele may become infected and may cause empyema of the gallbladder. So here we can see the empyema of the gallbladder, which is the consequence of acute cholecystitis or infected mucocele. Empyema means it contains pus within the gallbladder. This pus is formed by pyogenic organisms that infects the bile, which comes from the bile duct due to stasis of bile within the gallbladder. This type of patient will have aggravated symptoms, and these symptoms are severe pain in the right hypochondrium. The patient will also have fever and chills as well as rigor, because we know that any pus which is formed within the body, it will cause the systemic fissures, that is fever, chills, and rigor. On examination, there will be a tender mass in the right hypochondrium, as because the gallbladder will be a little bit distended, and it will be covered up by omentum, which will give the consistency of a mass in the right hypochondrium, and it will be obviously painful and tender. Previously, we learned that complete blood count of acute cholecystitis gives neutrophilic leukocytosis, but in this condition, in empyema gallbladder, the leukocytosis will be more in complete blood count. And definitive diagnosis, we can be made the definitive diagnosis by ultrasonography of the hepatobiliary system and CT scan. It will show the distended gallbladder as well as stone within the lumen of the gallbladder. The treatment is cholecystectomy. It may be done either laparoscopically or open, but this operation is very much difficult for the surgeons, and obviously the expert surgeons will do the operation. But if the patient's condition is not well, or the surgeon is not competent enough, then another option is cholecystostomy. That is, a tube is inserted within the gallbladder, the pus is drained. As a result, the inflammation of the gallbladder will subside, and the patient will be prepared in the meantime for interval cholecystectomy, that is about 3 months after the acute inflammation, and it will help the patient to heal without any complication during the operation. Now, we learned that the gallstone that is formed within the gallbladder or biliary tree, it may also cause a pathology within the bile duct. And when the gallstone is within the bile duct, we can call it choledocholithiasis. The gallbladder stone that is formed within the gallbladder, it may pass into the bile duct and it is called the secondary stone, but the stone may be primarily formed within the bile duct and it is called the primary stone. The primary cholecystectomy, which is more common in Asian population and most of the time it is brown or black. The secondary stones, it is more common in the Western countries and it is the cholesterol stone that comes from the gallbladder. That is another term that is retained common bile duct stone. If we find any stone within the biliary tree within 2 years of cholecystectomy or choledocholectomy, it is called retained bile duct stone. But if we get stones after 2 years within the bile duct, after first surgery, that is cholecystectomy or choledocholectomy, it is called recurrent bile duct stone. The patients with gallbladder cholecystectomy will present biliary colic, but most of the time it remains asymptomatic. Most of the time it remains asymptomatic, but when the stone obstructs the bile duct, it will cause the biliary colic. And this biliary colic is not the usual colic that we find in other structures, and it will last for several hours. When the obstruction is persistent, it may cause the complete or intermittent obstruction of the bile flow, and which will manifest as obstructive jaundice. And we know that the patient with obstructive jaundice presents with yellow coloration of the sclera, dark urine, the stool becomes light. Another feature that is called Charcot's triad. It indicates the inflammation or infection of the bile duct, that is called cholangitis, and it will present with fever associated with right upper quadrant pain and jaundice, and it is due to ascending cholangitis with bacteria that comes from the intestine into the bile duct. When the bile flow is obstructed, the biliary tree becomes infected with the bacteria that resides into the intestine. Sometimes this infection may progress into the septic shock, and then two associated features will be found, that is hypotension and altered mental status. And hypotension, altered mental status, as well as fever, right, hypochondriac pain, and jaundice, these 5 phenomenon is called Reynolds pattern. It indicates the shock from the biliary source. The diagnosis of the cholecystectomy depends upon the clinical features and some investigations. In the investigation of the investigations for the cholecystectomy will be first the liver function test, and in liver function test there may be raised bilirubin. Alkaline phosphatase is most commonly raised, but other enzymes are normal. But this liver function test does not confirm the presence of a stone within the gallbladder. It is not sensitive or specific. Sometimes the complete blood count shows leukocytosis, that is neutrophilic leukocytosis, which indicates the infection, that is cholangitis. And most of the time, ultrasonography, the less cheap investigations in our country, will diagnose the stone within the bile duct, and it will also say that biliary tree is dilated. There are some controversies about the ultrasonography report in the diagnosis of cholecystectomy. That is, if the patient is symptomatic and the bile duct is dilated, it is highly suggestive of cholecystectomy. Even if the ultrasonography does not say that there is a stone within the common bile duct, but we should consider that the patient has cholecystectomy. Even without symptoms of the biliary colic, a dilated biliary duct, bile duct, and presence of gallstone within the gallbladder, it will also suggest cholecystectomy. So, to avoid these controversies, we should do better imaging. The better imaging of the hepatobiliary system, it is the non-invasive magnetic resonance cholangiopancreatogram. We know that the MRCP, it is the T2 phase of the MRI, and it images the biliary tree. Here, the fluid, that is the bile in the biliary tree, will be whitish, and the stone within the bile duct, it will be black in color, and it is about more than 90% sensitive and almost 100% specific for the cholecystectomy. Another invasive investigation, that is endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatogram, that is highly sensitive and specific, but it is an invasive procedure and we don't do it as a diagnostic investigation because it has a therapeutic role, and when we consider the patient needs removal of a stone, uh, then we consider the patient for endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography. Another investigation, that is percutaneous transhepatic cholangiogram, that is rarely done because MRCP can mostly diagnose the presence of bile duct stone, and PTC, it is not required frequently. The treatment options of cholecystectomy. There are several treatment options. We know that the pathology is in the gallbladder and in the bile duct. So we have to remove the stone within the bile duct by ERCP. After introduction of ERCP, the papillotomy is done. A guide wire is passed beyond the stone. Then the balloon is inflated and the stone is swapped with the balloon as well as the guide wire. And if the stone is large, sometimes the ERCP may fail to remove the stone from the bile duct. ERCP will be followed by laparoscopic cholecystectomy because if we don't do the cholecystectomy after ERCP, the stone within the gallbladder may pass into the common bile duct and it will cause recurrence of the symptoms of bile duct stone in 50% of patients. So we should commonly do laparoscopic cholecystectomy after ERCP removal of the bile duct stones. In our country, we are less expert in laparoscopic bile duct exploration, but it is the safe and effective operation of the common bile duct stones, because in one setting we can do laparoscopic cholecystectomy as well as laparoscopic choledocholithotomy, and it is indicated when ERCP fails to remove the CBD stones, and it is a safe and effective procedure. The last option is open common bile duct exploration, and we frequently do this operation as because our patients have no enough facilities to do ERCP followed by laparoscopic cholecystectomy. So we do the operation in open procedure and in one setting, that is open cholecystectomy with cholecystectomy. It is most effective and it carries low morbidity, and the chance of uterine stone is less than 5% in open cholecystectomy with cholecystectomy. Sometimes stone may be impacted in the ampulla of Vater, and it may not be possible to remove the stone by ERCP or by common bile duct exploration. Then we should consider for drainage of the bile by transduodenal sphincteroplasty. Here the duodenum is opened, the sphincter is widened for the passage of bile. It is called transduodenal sphincterotomy. Sometimes we found the intrahepatic stones, and these intrahepatic stones sometimes be difficult to remove, as because there are some conditions for which the intrahepatic stones are formed. There is obvious conditions like cholecystectomy cyst or stricture or ascending sclerosing cholangitis. So there will be a stricture below the stone, and by bile duct exploration, this stone may not be possible to be removed. So we should consider for a bypass procedure for this type of patients. And long-term management of this type of patients with stones in the hepatic duct may need hepaticojejunostomy or hepaticoduodenostomy. Hepaticoduodenostomy, it is done for better drainage of the bile duct due to stone in the common hepatic duct or stone in the distal CBD at the ampulla of Vater that was not cleared by surgery. But one complication that is occur in the hepaticoduodenostomy, that is distal part of the common bile duct is remained, and there may be accumulation of the sludge or stone in the distal bile duct, which may progress up to the anastomosis, and it may obstruct the anastomosis. But here the anatomy is not altered, so further endoscopic procedures can access to the anastomosis and the bile duct. It is the benefit of the hepaticoduodenostomy, but some syndrome that is produced by a sludge or stone in the distal bile duct, that is the harmful effect of this operation. Another option of treatment of cholecystectomy that is not cleared by surgery, and for better drainage of the bile, we have to do a bypass surgery, that is the Roux-en-Y hepaticojejunostomy. Here the jejunum is transected, the distal part is ascended upwards, and it is anastomosed with the hepatic duct, and the proximal lobe is anastomosed with the distal jejunum. Here the drainage is better, but the anatomy is altered. So endoscopist cannot access through the duodenum, jejunum, and ascending loop to the bile duct. It is the demerits of this operation. But the chance of some syndrome is less in Roux-en-Y hepaticojejunostomy because distal bile duct is not remain in place. It is excised. Sometimes the gallstone may cause pancreatitis. How it happens? When the gallstone from the gallbladder passes to the bile duct and it passes through the ampulla of Vater, it may cause erosion and may cause pressure at the pancreatic duct. And This pressure may cause pressure in the pancreatic duct and causes inflammation of the pancreas. A very minimum and temporary elevation of the pancreatic pressure, which will cause significant injury of the pancreas and will cause pancreatitis. But fortunately, the most of the gallstone pancreatitis, it is self-limited. But if the pancreatitis is severe and there is impacted stone in the ampulla of Vater or in the bile duct, then urgent ERCP should be done to remove the gallstone to relieve the pressure within the pancreatic duct and to relieve the pancreatitis. And to relieve further episode, laparoscopic cholecystectomy should be done because the gallbladder is the source of bile duct stone. So if it is kept in situ, it will cause further attacks of pancreatitis, and pancreatitis may be severe and it may cause severe symptoms with high chance of morbidity. Sometimes some patients may ask about the non-operative management of the stones in the biliary tree. So we have to know that how we can remove stones without operation, but we have to teach our patients that this type of management is less effective and the recurrence rate is high, but we have to know about the non-operative management. The stones within the gallbladder or biliary tree, which may be diluted with the oral bile salt therapy, and but there is 50% chance of recurrence with this type of treatment. Another option is contact dissolution with infusion of organic solvent. This solvent will dilute the uh, stone which comes in contact with the organic solvent, and the stone will be diluted. But the chance of recurrence is also 50%. Another option is extracorporeal shockwave lithotripsy. The shockwave is produced from outside and it will fragment the stone into small pieces, and ultimately it will be cleared by the biliary tree. There is less chance of recurrence in this case, that is extracorporeal shockwave lithotripsy. This was all about the management of cholelithiasis and gallstones within the uh, gallbladder. If there is any confusion, it may be asked in the comments. So I have to see the comments if there is any question. I find no questions regarding the management of gallstones. So, as I have passed about 1 hour during this cure, so I have to stop now. And if there is any question on this topic, you may ask further, because I have another topic of discussion in the next week. I can answer in that session about the management of gallstones. So thank you all. Good evening. Best of luck. Thank you.